Hey, what's up? This is Alex Sampson, and I'd like to welcome you to the 21-Day Groove Makeover. Now, I'm not sure if this is your first Bass Guitar Tips product, or if you have been one of our customers that have been around with us ever since, 2005? Whatever it is, I just want to say welcome, and I think that you're going to get a whole lot of value out of this particular training. Now, what we want to do, like the name suggests, the 21-Day Groove Makeover, is that we're going to make a study of groove. This is going to be a very straightforward training, something that's going to be a lot of fun because it's going to involve a whole lot of playing, right? Not a lot of theory, not a lot of talk about stuff, but a lot of playing. So go grab your bass and get ready because we're going to dive right into some stuff. I just kind of want to set the stage and to set a platform for what we're going to be doing. So like I said, we're going to be trying to make a study of groove. Now, every time that I have spoken to a musician about groove, every time that I have purchased, let's say, a DVD that talks about bass grooving and how to groove and stuff, you come across 1,000 different ways that people try to define what the groove is, and honestly I think it's because it is a very difficult thing to describe. What exactly is groove? So I've heard people talk about playing on time. Well, guess what? I've seen guys play on time and still not groove. I've also seen guys play off of time and groove. We'd hear people talk about building consistency. Well, I've seen guys that were very consistent, but their playing the band didn't groove, even though they were very consistent and the band members were consistent. But I have noticed that there are some consistent things through everything that I've observed about groove, that I've read about groove, that I've seen, that I've talked to other musicians about groove. There are some consistent things that always show up with people who have groove, with people who can play and develop that pocket. And for me, it kind of comes down to three different things that I remember using this little acronym, ARC. A being articulation, R being repetition, and C being context. For some reason, the guys that can really groove, the guys that can play either one note or 20 notes, 2 notes or 400 notes in a bar and make it sound like it was grooving, they had a handle on articulation. And for me, a lot of the guys that have been with our training for a minute, they know that when I say articulation, I mean everything that that is an umbrella over how your notes come across, right? So all of the stuff, when we talk, we have articulation devices. We can speak loud, we can speak soft, we can bring people in, we can slow it down, we can speed up for emphasis, and we can do all of these things with our voice and with our body that conveys a different, hopefully a congruent message to what we're saying. It's the same thing with music. There's the notes, but there's the articulation of how the notes were delivered. So your articulation is something that I want you to pay attention to in this particular training. We're talking about whether or not something was a ghost note, whether or not something was played muted or it was a full note, whether or not something was played as a long note, a legato note, or a short staccato note. You have to pay attention to all of these details if you want to build up your groove. The second thing that has always showed up in any conversation that I've had about groove is repetition. Okay, so we find that the grooviest bass lines, for some reason, have a degree of repetition in them. Even if the particular groove line might have been wordy, even if it might have been busy, even if there might have been a whole lot of note choices in there, for some reason, there is an identifiable section that you can predict is going to come up. And that is an essential part of being able to convey a groove, giving a listener something that it becomes so predictable to their ear, even if there's slight changes in it, that it's so predictable to a person's ear that they can start getting into, yeah, I know what's coming up. And that's when a person kind of lets their guard down. It's like, we've come to depend on this. There's a concrete groove. The band is filling the concrete groove. And now I can just kind of get into enjoying the music. And the third thing that I've always found comes up with groove is context. And this is where you would see a guy play offbeat but still sound good because the context of what he was doing fit. You would hear people use notes that do not belong to a particular scale and it still sounds good. So these are the things, these three things that I have always found make up a guy who are ingredients in a great groove. There's always great articulation, there's always some sort of repetition, and there's always great context. The person listens to the whole. It's not just the bass player, it's not just me standing up there. It's, am I playing a long note now because there's an open hi-hat that just got played? Am I playing a hammer-on and a gliss right now because the vocalist just did something that makes it sound like this will fit? And that's the bigger airs that you have as a musician, as a bass player, then the better musician that you're going to be. And that's what this entire training is about, trying to get you to be a better musician. Now, that being said, if it is all about groove, what do we do? How do we go about it? Okay, so first off, you're going to notice that there's a collection of 47 songs in this particular training. Now, my colleagues and I chose these songs not because we wanted to put together some list of the world's best bass lines or anything like that, because that is very subjective. Instead, what it was is that we examined a whole bunch of bass lines. I'm literally talking about hundreds of bass lines to find ones that we could put together in a bit of a formulaic way to help you develop crucial bass playing skills. So whether we're talking about playing anticipatory notes, whether we're talking about playing ghost notes, muted notes, whether it is we're talking about doing string skips, the things that you're going to pick up in terms of technical skills, learning sonic shapes, and learning different articulations, as long as you pay attention to the ARC formula that I just kind of gave you before, you're going to be picking up skills through what I like to call musical osmosis. Now, there's a few ways that people say that they like to learn. You'd hear some people say, I'm a visual learner. Some people might say that I learn through experience. Some people might say that I learn by reading stuff. Well, guess what? There is one method of learning that has pretty much 100% success rate, and it is learning through imitation. No matter who it is that's looking at this video right now, you learn through imitation. You learned your first language through imitation by imitating the words that your parents taught you. So even before you understood what a noun or a verb and stuff was, and this is something that I say a lot, people need to really get the fact that you can learn to play and to become a great musician through imitating others that are already great. Am I saying that there is not a place for understanding? Not at all. I'm one of those guys who's real big on understanding what's going on, but that does not take away from the fact that one of the most powerful methods that you have for learning is through imitation. In fact, it is something that I believe in so much that when I work with students, I often tell them that there's a difference between learning to play the bass and playing to learn the bass. Think about that for a second, and I personally absolutely believe in using playing to learn. I think that we can pick stuff up in a natural, hands-on, organic way when we play to learn. So that's what we're going to be doing right now. I'm simply going to give you exercises, rather grooves, that I want you to work on a particular day, and all you have to do is to imitate it. I'm going to give you the tabs. Even if you're a beginner, it's literally just putting your fingers down where the tabs say, playing the groove, and really assimilating what's getting played. You're going to be learning shapes, you're going to be learning sounds, you're going to be learning positions on the fretboard, you're going to be working on your technique, you're going to be working on your air, you're going to be working on so many different things, feel, timing, all of these great things that are important, even if you don't even know where an A note is on the bass. So I just said that to say I don't want the beginners to think this isn't for us. Hey, you're not really explaining where this came from. You don't need to understand where it came from to get groove benefit out of it. We have a whole bunch of other courses that are about learning the fretboard, learning notes, about understanding how to come up with your grooves and stuff, your own grooves, how to analyze chord charts and build bass lines and that kind of stuff. That's not what this is about. This is about helping you suck up groove, right? That's the way I like to think about it. And I really do honestly believe that if you just go through this entire training, this program, and you imitate people and bass lines and grooves and riffs that were already done before you, that all have great articulation, that all represent great repetition, that all represent great use of context, if you simply imitate this stuff enough, you're going to start sucking up that groove. And at the end of 21 days, if you're diligent, if you pay attention to ARC, you're going to be a better groove player.